Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. This is Jeb Hanwerger. Today we have a special guest with us, Cole Evans. Cole is the president and CEO of Enduro Metals, which is exploring their flagship Newmont Lake project in the Golden Triangle, right between SK Creek, Snip, and Galore Creek. It can be traded as ENDR on the TSX Venture. It also can be traded as SIOCF on the OTCQB, which they recently uplisted to. Thank you, Cole, for being here with us today. There's been some important news to discuss today with shareholders and prospective shareholders. But before we get into today's important news, there's been a lot of interest in the Golden Triangle recently. We've seen some real great success in the area with companies like Skeena and SK Mining. And your property is located right in the heart of this northwestern British Columbia's Golden Triangle. You're a geologist by background. You really worked within the industry, and you've recently come on as CEO of Enduro. Talk to us about your background. And before we get into today's news, what Enduro has advanced so far on the properties.
Absolutely. Well, first off, Jeb, thanks for having me. It's greatly appreciated. So it's just starting a bit on my background, as you mentioned in the intro there. I'm a geologist by trade, is how I like to put it. Particularly focused on the Golden Triangle. That's where our team, we like to think we've cut our teeth for a little while. My background on the business side was moving beyond geology. I originally started an exploration services company at Geoscience Services, things like that, focused completely on the Golden Triangle. We worked on over 3,000 square kilometers of northwestern British Columbia, that area, like you said, when you mentioned the Skeena, the SKs, and the majors, of course, in there, Newmont, Teck, Barrick funding companies, Kirkland Lake Gold, all that stuff, all up there. And come, I guess it's been about a year, I became the CEO of what's now Enduro Metals. I'm also the largest shareholder. I've invested about $2.5 million. That's in Canadian dollars, about $2 million US into the company over that time period, based on one simple fact, and that's, I think we have one of the best projects, if not the best junior project in the Golden Triangle. As you mentioned, Newmont Lake, that's our flagship property. It's 638 square kilometers, which would be, it's tough to compare it in size. It's one of the largest properties in the Golden Triangle. I think, in fact, it may be the single largest junior land holding in the Golden Triangle. And when we say in the Golden Triangle, as you mentioned, it's right in the heart. We're in the center between, you've got Galore Creek to the north, you have Snip, SK, KSM, all down to the south. We're right in the center of it. And something we like to look at when we talk about the high level view of Newmont Lake and what makes it so special is, how unexplored it has been historically, for a number of reasons that we can get into if you like. But as I always say to people, you're not going to find something unless you go actually looking for it. And that's kind of what this news that we've been putting out, or that's come out today, and news developing over the last few months, is about the exploration we've been doing in 2020, and that we're getting results for now and are coming out. And we're starting to see, the most exciting thing for me is we're starting to see the signs for a large scale gold system. And when we say that, these are the big deposits, what the majors are chasing, what everyone's looking for, particularly in safe jurisdictions. And we've got the high grade on surface, and now we're starting to see that really big picture, which is quite exciting.
So let's get into more details about today's news, because I originally got interested last summer when you came out with some great results last summer, and then Rob McEwen, the famous gold mining investor, came in with a private placement. And I've been following the story ever since. So I've always known that some of the high grade that can be found on this property is off the scale. But what's interesting about today's news release, as you said prior to that there could be a really big, large scale porphyry here. And when gold prices move higher and we get into a gold bull market, investors begin looking for leverage to that gold price, and that's why they start looking for these large scale gold system porphyries. And today you hit this 139 meters of 0.82, and there's also some high grade intersected as well. So if you could break down today's news release in layman's terms, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Jeb, like you mentioned, so it's in that still is our focus. As I always say to people, in the near term, our focus is on near surface high grade gold, because that's what I believe is going to bring the most value to our shareholders in the near term. Of course, for self-explanatory reasons, it's near surface and it's high grade. But ultimately, what this near surface high grade gold, that has to come from something. The type of mineralization that it's found in is secondary in nature. So it needs a primary source. It has to have an ultimate source of the gold and the copper. The copper is significant as well to mention. It's got to come from somewhere, and that's what we believe we're starting to see with this more porphyry-like mineralization as we move a bit deeper. So when we talk about our near surface high grade gold, for instance, our hole that we rushed back in the fall, right coming off the season, just to give you examples of some numbers, 8.85 meters of 31 grams gold with 6.5 grams silver and just over % copper, or to put it in other terms, that's about a 4-story building of an ounce of gold through it consistently. That's all within, we're talking within 150 meters of surface. Okay, so very, very shallow, relatively speaking. Now that we're starting to drill underneath that high grade system that you'll see in the press release, particularly in the very first image, you'll see what's called a long section, and the histograms are there consistently moving across. But it's about that bulk tonnage gold that's starting to build up underneath. That's what has what I view as the really big picture, long-term upside, in that it has all the indications thus far of being the ultimate source of the near surface high grade gold that we've seen, that continues to be open, that will continue to be our focus, our main focus. But also, we're going to be looking very closely at this bulk tonnage gold sitting beneath, because ultimately, when you look at the big deposits around us, like Seabridge, KSM, of course, Newcrest coming in out of Australia a couple of years ago at Red Chris, Newmont and Teck's joint venture just to the north of us at Galore Creek. That's what the majors are chasing. They're chasing these big bulk tonnage porphyry systems, and that's what we're starting to see in the bottom half of our drill holes thus far. And what I want to remind people is, when you look at these big bulk tonnage systems, they're exactly that. They're huge, up to a mile or more in vertical extent. So the drill holes that we've drilled thus far to date would only be touching, the top 10 to 15% of what those systems theoretically are in size and scale. And the fact that we're getting the numbers that we're getting, touching those, what theoretically would be that top 10 to 15%, is pretty encouraging. And then we also have the geophysics and the other different layers to back up our theories of what could be going on as we get deeper.
It seems like, Cole, that you're being able to consistently intersect mineralization here, and the signs seem to be showing that the grades getting better and continuing along the trend. Do you have any ideas of the limits of this, or can you explain the upside here? Or we don't really know how big this system is yet.
Jeb, you hit it in those last few words there. To be quite frank, we don't know the limits of the system at this point. The high grade is open along strike, along this McClymont fault. That's really important. I always say to investors and just generally in the mining space, I say when you look at any gold camp throughout the world, there's a list of similarities that you can pull out of each camp that make it what it is. And one of those similarities that you're going to see across the world is structure, faults, right? The gold, the silver, the copper, whatever you're looking for, it needs a conduit. No different than the pipes in your house. You need pipes in your house to move the hot water through. Well, the kind of fluids that are carrying the metals, they need the exact same thing. And the bigger, the better, so to speak. So we're right along this McClymont fault. It's over 20 kilometers in length. I mean, you can see it from satellite imagery. It's massive. And we've just explored really a 500 meter section of that. So it truly is open. We have no idea the extent of it from a lateral perspective on the high grade, and obviously as well with the depth, with the bulk tonnage target, we are just getting into that. We got geophysics indicating conductivity down to nearly a mile depth beneath the mineralization we're talking about right now. So it's encouraging signs that this thing is big, but we truly don't know how big.
And it's important for investors to understand that this mineralization, it has the potential to be like some of the bigger Golden Triangle projects that we've seen that has come back into favor recently, like Treaty Creek, KSM. Could you highlight some of the other projects that have a similar style that's in the, I guess, 50 to 100 kilometers to the property?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a couple good ones, of course, in your KSM, Iron Cap, Treaty Creek. I generalized the Sulphurettes camp. Bruce Jack's in there as well, right? Of course, that's in an area the size of what we call our McClymont project. Because really we break down the Newmont Lake as having 4 systems. I always say to people, it's 4 systems. We're focused on the McClymont one right now. So if you just took that area and you go into the Sulphurettes camp, you fit 5 deposits within the same frame. What we're seeing here, to me, and why I make those comparisons, because from a geological perspective, I think the system that we're starting to see at McClymont is most similar to that. I mean, it's about 40, 50 kilometers away, about 30 miles away, right along the arc from where we're at. In the most important similarity, I mean, I got a list of about 16 things that I'm looking at, but the most important one per se right now would be, it's actually hidden at the bottom of the press release. It's a little more technical, but I draw your listeners to this Texas Creek intrusion that we talk about. The Texas Creek is a kind of a famous name in the Golden Triangle, and what it is it's a very specific rock which formed all of these big deposits that we're talking about. The KSM, Treaty Creek, snowfields, of course, there's just a big deal on snowfields between Seabridge and Pretium. Bruce Jack, Snip, Premier, these were all formed by this very specific Texas Creek intrusion. We had a university study come and fingerprint the rock that is right beside the target that we're talking about, and where we're seeing our more bulk tonnage gold with our high grade above it, and it came back pinpointed exactly where it should be, as being that Texas Creek intrusion. So we've got the same rocks that appear to be forming our system as all those other big systems we talked about in the Golden Triangle. Of course, I can't tell you that it is the same thing yet, because we don't know. It's never been drilled to those depths. It's never been drilled to those extents. We're a fraction of the exploration truly a fraction of exploration versus what you're going to see in those areas. But that's why we're so excited on that upside potential. Is we have all the signs there. Now it's just about going out and just continuing to put holes in the ground and getting more results.
Well, Cole, it's a great point that you make that you have it there, and that you now just have to drill. One of the things that I tell my investors and my subscribers is to look for early stage opportunities. The current market cap at Enduro, I think, is below 35 million, or around 35 million right now. Companies like Seabridge that have drilled to the depth and have come up with these huge resources, they have market caps of 1.5 billion. So this is where if junior mining investors, you should look. We look for the early stage opportunities before it gets picked up by institutions. It's kind of in that sweet zone before that 50 million market cap. So really exciting times for Enduro Metals. Important to look at today's news release. They're consistently hitting shallow high-grade mineralization, gold and copper mineralization, and now they're hitting a larger system here. So it's quite an exciting time at Enduro. Cole, is there anything else that you'd like to conclude before? And how can investors get more information on the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, feel free to call us at any time. Our contact information will be listed in any of our press releases or on our website. We're happy to chat with people. And just keep up to date. There's going to be a lot more news rolling out. I'm sure you've heard it across the industry this year. There were some significant delays with assay turnaround times and that as a result of COVID and just the increase in activity, as you mentioned, in the Golden Triangle and elsewhere. So we were a bit delayed getting as where we would have liked to have been of getting our news out. But these are our first 4 holes of the drilling that we did in 2020. The news is starting to flow, excuse me. More results are going to be coming out. And that's not only on McClymont, but like I said, we've got 3 other really projects, and I say that because our project is so big, but we have 3 other major areas within our project as well, and there's going to be more new, Burgundy, Chachi, and Cuba are their 3 names, and there's going to be more news coming out about those as well as we move along, in addition to more drilling results at McClymont.
Well, you heard it here. Cole Evans, CEO of Enduro Metals. It could be traded as ENDR on the TSX Venture. It also could be traded as SIOCF. It just got uplisted to the OTCQB. And you're hearing that there's going to be a lot of news here coming forward, because there has been some delays, and there's been so much interest coming into the Golden Triangle, into this area, and this is a company that's just starting to get noticed, and potentially, from some of the smart investors like Rob McEwen, and hopefully it'll get soon noticed by some more of the institutions and more investors as they continue to come out with very impressive results. So thank you, Cole, for being here with us today and for giving us some context into today's news and an update into Enduro Metals.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeb.